me take my seat. Hello everyone. If anyone's tuning in now, my name is Gabriel. You've probably seen me do a couple of interviews here for the camp as we're here in the 64 Women Pulling Up the Threads of Social Discourse, the full quilting exhibition that we have in the gallery and display right now until November 13th. And today I'm joined by one of the artists in the exhibition and one of our resident artists, Laura Marsh.
Hi.
So we just kind of wanted to have the opportunity to sit down and talk like we had for a lot of our different conversations with artists. And just kind of over the course, you may have seen Regina Jestro's interview yesterday. And so today we're just kind of continuing that pattern as we kind of go forward into the next weeks. You'll see a lot of interviews between us and some of the artists, just to get their thoughts and opinions on the exhibition and kind of their works at hand as well. So I don't know if you kind of want to introduce the piece that you kind of went for this exhibition that we know, Suck It Up.
Yeah.
It's kind of been looked at by a lot of people and they love kind of the imagery, and it's pretty much essentially your unique style that you're going with. So kind of, if you want to elaborate on what your influences were for that piece specifically.
Sure. So I don't watch a lot of sports documentaries, but I happen to watch Untold Breaking Point on Netflix, which is Marty Fitch's story, the tennis player who turned away from his craft for a few years. And there's a point in the film where he describes a match that he played where everything blacked out and all he could see was the court. And he won that match, but he described this like very dispirited experience of just getting through and not feeling any like love or any passion or just completely being checked out. And I thought about that moment, which was very riveting. And I said to myself, like, yeah, a lot of people in these fields, especially art also, these fields where very few people make it to the top or can solely support themselves from it. Like, he was supporting himself, obviously, but still felt like this extreme isolation. And he further says that he was told to suck it up, and then he describes that suck it up is an American mentality that he's speaking out against. And it was funny, I had this moment where I've been through a lot in the past 2 years and had a baby, I'm now an independent artist and curator, and I'm working with various organizations. It's the first time that's happened to me. And I remember the year before saying suck it up to my partner who started a business, and he was experiencing a lot of stress, and that now I'm in a similar place that he is where I'm starting a business. And I thought to myself, oh my God, I told my partner to suck it up. And actually I think Marty Fitch is right. It's this mentality that we have of like progress forward, go after your dreams, go after your goals, but like leave everything else behind, and you can find yourself isolated and alone. And so I thought about like how I wanted to incorporate this into the piece, and so it says suck it up is not tolerated, and I'm doing more work that's about tolerance and how to relate to other people, especially people that are going through a hard time in the pandemic. I felt like mental health was something that was still very difficult to broach with other Americans specifically. And I'm really happy that within the arts, like we're just starting to talk about mental health, and even like residency programs are assessing the mental health of the residents and how to bring in like specialists and people who do meditation or who have psychology degrees, and just like incorporating that into production. And I think that since we're in this reassessment, I think it's a beautiful time. So I really want to talk about having tolerance in my work, and also like how to be a lifeline for someone else. I know I've been through a lot of experiences with social class. Like I don't come from money. I've gone to and attended really wealthy universities and worked for wealthy institutions, but my salaries were sometimes like less than to be desired, and other times they were great. So I feel like there's a lot of room within our community to really talk about how everyone is doing and to even be there for each other.
The sense of solitude that has kind of embraced a lot of, especially the art community, kind of being most directly affected, as so many artists just work out of their homes their studio is like an escape from that kind of home life.
Yeah.
That it is, mental health is a really big thing that needs to be looked at. It is drastic how impactful just words and your state of being are.
Absolutely.
Even in relation to yourself and what you tell yourself. Your own words can hurt you as much, or if not more, than other people's. And that's a very strong reason, I think, to kind of put issues like this to the forefront and be able to talk about these on an open platform, an open stage where people can react kind of more truthfully. So that is I did not know like that much further into your work, even reading upon so many different artists and being able to kind of reflect on what they're saying.
Yeah.
Hearing that inspiration directly from the artist herself is really like nice and impactful. It's part of the reason why I love having these talks and interviews. But kind of one of the other things I really wanted to ask about, because being a quilting show, fiber-based art is not a new medium at all. We can look back hundreds and hundreds of years, even thousands, into old tapestries. Fiber art is something that's been kind of lived forever, but it's been discarded. I'd say probably, especially by a Western audience, in probably past 100 years as a craft.
Yeah.
It's entirely looked at as a home craft, and it's unfortunate. But it's also given kind of work for people to be able to use it as a craft for their livelihood, for everything, to kind of advance a lot of cultural and technologies. But how do you, as an artist working in a full fiber exhibition, kind of treat that kind of stigma that we have against is sewing and fiber-based art? Is it truly an art, or is it a craft? How do you react to that?
Well, it's both. I personally feel it's always been a fine art. I've come up against the argument that it's a craft, and those old categories of craft and art are convenient for some, not for others. Like, I remember studying about Judy Chicago when the dinner table was in storage at the Brooklyn Museum, and I wanted to see that whole dinner party like complete, and I wanted to experience it, so much so that 10 years later, when the Brooklyn Museum built a gallery that actually is triangular shaped and fits it, I went to see it. And then they have a really robust like feminist archive and collection. So I felt like there was that period of time, and when she made the work, she was severely criticized for craft, for labor, the women who she hired to work on the project. And I felt like a lot of her male counterparts really came down on her. And I think it's unfair, largely. Thankfully, I felt like a lot of the art fairs in the past 10 years have really started featuring fiber art, and more and more people are making it. And I also think there are people that make macrame completely commercially now also, or all of these mediums can also be made in the commercial art world as well. But the thing that I think is most interesting about fiber art that is really coming out and also integrated in this exhibition is that quilt making specifically is connected to female communities and getting together in quilting circles and sharing stories about like distress, family, pride, celebration, nationalism, multiculturalism, that women have been gathering forever to make these things. And quilts have also had like a home use. You would make a quilt for your granddaughter, you make a quilt for a child, you make a quilt. And I still know women that exclusively quilt and donate the quilts every year to families in need. So I feel like the community aspect of quilt making deserves to be looked at through a conceptual lens, that women that choose to do it in this exhibition, and men, there's a lot of men that make quilts, that they're taking on that history and challenging it, sometimes subverting it. And there's a lot of subversion in here, as well as a full embrace of quilting. And I think that more galleries are paying attention to fiber art and really should be paying attention to fiber art from all artists from globally, and we're seeing more and more of it. So I think that people are getting their heads out of the sand, and I think in today's world, with my generation and the next generation, I feel that we're no longer fighting that battle between high art and craft. I feel like actually we're even flipping the gallery system and saying, can you sell work on your own? Can you also work with a gallery? Can you work with museums? Can you work with a set of entities? And I think more and more people are branding themselves and putting themselves out there as entities. Whereas when those old arguments, I like to just think of them as the canon of art history arguments that I'm completely bored by and find to be disingenuous today, you know? But there, you might still encounter someone that's like, what's fiber art? But really, any artist can work with any medium and call it art. And you can't really dispute that, you know? And someone else's form of art, if it's not yours, learn about it, read about it, talk to someone.
It's not hard to look even as close as the Dada movement was not that long ago.
No, not at all.
When you realistically consider it, and found to many people was a piece that most of them will not call art, and they'll never call art. Jackson Pollock's piece is even looking more modern. A lot of people will still not call that art, and approaching non kind of art world members and kind of introducing them that anything, you can make something considered art, anything considered art rather, when you put the dedication, when you put the meaning, when you put your kind of, I guess, mentality and your thoughts into it. Whether it's a cultural criticism, whether it's a political criticism, whether it's just you're really wanting to tell a story, it can be moved kind of forward. And I think fiber art is really, I think, pushing that forward more, those ideas more than any other kind of medium right now, especially. We recently made a trip up to spring break during, New York, during spring break art fair, and it was really surprising to see the amount of fiber work actually on display. Many tapestries, many rugs, many full wall pieces that were completely dedicated to fiber art, and being able to display one of our fiber artists amongst that was really invigorating, because it showed that it wasn't an abandonment of the medium. People were appreciating it in a way that it was kind of not worthy to display, because all art is worthy of display, but rather this collective of artists are all kind of unified that we believe this medium is worth putting out there for people to see.
Absolutely, and I think that fiber art is always connected to the body in some way. There's something visceral about it. We wear clothes. We literally wear fiber every day. So there's familiarity to it, but a lot of fiber artists also reference the body, and I also think fiber is connected to performance. And I think performance and fiber and these kind of more evocative mediums, and they have that viscerality that can sometimes provoke thought or provoke momentum. And so I think that's like the beauty of the medium, and I wouldn't even say it's education. I've had some of the best conversations I've had about fiber art have been with security guards, at museums or at institutions, because I think there is a curiosity for something that you want to touch. I want to touch this. I have touched a few pieces in the show, and I like that there's something participatory about it. And in my work, I like it when people touch the work, because I feel like why does it have to be so selfish where I'm the artist maker and I have this intense relationship to this material, but then it gets put on a wall and then it gets, there's a spectatorship there. And I've always wanted to break that down, and many of the women in this show are breaking that down in their work too, and are very invested in process. And we had a show and tell of each one of these squares before the install, and I thought that was a nice moment, because it was a bunch of us as women with our kids. Aurora's students put a lot of time into this show, and her daughter made her own quilt square, and she even referenced the previous artist, Stella, and from the previous show. So there's been this really nice community crossover, and everyone that's in this show believes in that and wants more of that.
I think more than anything, the semblance of a community that kind of fiber art brings together, I think more so than any other medium, like by far. You have sculptor studios, painters tend to kind of work more reclusive, the same thing, drawing focuses, but fiber is a community kind of medium, just inherently, just tracing back to its history. And I think that kind of emerges for so many more interesting kind of dialogues and topics, especially when you promote things as group exhibitions that are able to talk about them and kind of free them out into an open platform. But let's actually tackle one last question that we really kind of wanted to ask you more than anything. How do you feel now presenting a work in an exhibition that usually for group exhibitions, you just have a work that is presented alongside others? But for this exhibition, we really asked you to make a work that was meant to be with others.
Yeah.
It was kind of a different focus. So how do you really feel about being able to tackle that idea where your work would purposefully be on display, practically touching another artist as we kind of have them
Absolutely.
displayed?
Yeah, for me, the built-in community is extremely important. And to be a community member, it doesn't mean that you have to always go to every event or you have to like put other people ahead of yourself. It means that you are accepting that there is a community that is convening about this topic. And for me, that was wonderful. And I wanted to go to Stella's workshop, and that day just didn't work out for me. But I said to myself, well, I can't come today, but I'm still going to quilt today to kind of honor that this action happened. And that, for me, it's just nice to know that the community is there. And you can choose your level of participation. And I was really excited to see the whole full quilt come together. You know, being an individual artist it's like a couple things. Sometimes being isolated in your studio is actually what you need. I've had studios in many community spaces, and there were a couple of spaces that didn't really work so well. Like I would show up to my studio and there would be 3 band practices going on simultaneously in an immersive event, and I had a show that with a deadline in a week, and I just need to put in some hours, you know? I've had those experiences. And honestly, I still liked that community was doing its thing, even though sometimes I had to be an individual making. And then there have been other times where I've come to workshops here, or I've gone to Aurora Studios. So Aurora is such a big organizer and also a natural teacher. And I've gone to her studio and just needed to be around materials and needing to feel some energy. I think energy exchange is super important. That sometimes you just need to be around people because you're going through so much, and other times you need to actually withdraw because you've been doing too much. But that ecosystem, the fact that everyone here was committed to being a piece that's part of a larger whole, I think makes the exhibition stronger together. I guess to quote Hillary Clinton, but stronger together is something that a lot of us need. And so when I look around the room, like I read my text and I also read Protect Reproductive Rights, Infinite Power. I see gatherings of women in like a very large percentage of these quilts. I see like narratives about motherhood. I see narratives about loneliness. I see narratives about loss. So it really runs the gamut of human experience. So I feel like anyone can come here and find a relatable narrative on the wall, and that's very exciting. And then you can see crossovers, like my piece has a lot of black in it. I don't usually work in black, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of high contrast work in this show. And there's just like so much texture and material combination. So I think you can keep revisiting this show and come back and see something different every time also.
100%.
And then you might even learn about an artist, because most of the artists in the show I know, but some of them are students, some of them are people's mothers. Like there's different artists to learn about. So it's exciting to have a show that's that transformative.
Being able to give the platform to so many different kind of people from different walks of life. Many of these people, this is the first time they're kind of ever even creating a fiber art piece that they learned for the process of the show from people like the group at Fama, from Aurora, from kind of everyone, even daughters learning from mothers in the form of Aurora and her daughter Stella. So it's a learning process for everyone, and being able to kind of see the accumulation of all that knowledge, being able to be displayed kind of at full force, where everyone practically is telling a different message, even if it happens to be in the same medium, even if it happens to be with the same display of figurative or abstract texture, all these kind of relations. It, I think, gives this exhibition more than anything kind of its completely unique voice that ends up being way stronger. I think even sometimes in some of the exhibitions that we've shown before, that we adore them, but we want to keep pushing forward. We want to give new voice to new people, to new messages, whether they have to be references to history, or if they need to be things that need to be discussed now at this moment. And I think so many of the artists are approaching things the same way, where they're able to take modern techniques, modern learnings of past materials of different cultures and apply it to a new message. Sometimes all these things need to be just on display for people to even pay attention to them, because it can sometimes just become a background thought.
Absolutely, and I think something that FAMA does, I really do believe that FAMA changes lives and brings more people into the fold, that there are new members that join and engage with fiber. And it's not really necessarily important, this whole concept of individuality, or being the best artist is something that doesn't exist. It just doesn't. And to be able to break that down and really push community forward is very important. And also CAMP, the one thing that's great about CAMP is the breaking down of the hierarchy. Melanie is wonderful, and all of you guys at CAMP, you're part of a team, and it's not based on hierarchy, like, oh, well, you're the coordinator, and you're the curator, and you're this or you're that. Everyone is respected, and each voice is honored. So I think we need more of that, because in many institutions, that hierarchical structure, it renders certain voices inaudible. And if you actually look at the statistics of some of those employees, it is often women, and it is often people of color that get completely dismissed. So we're in a time where we really need to accept that a variety of voices is actually like a good portrayal of humanity, that excluding people purposefully is actually wrong. So I feel like this show makes that statement of like, let's really dig deep and let's get to the issues and put them out there, like you're saying, because once those voices are out there, there's more possibilities for future conversations. And there are people in this show that will actually be encouraged to keep showing if they've never shown fiber before, or might try a new technique or go to a workshop.
I'm hoping that continues for all the artists that we have on display here, that they see this as not just something, a spur of the moment, that this is something that they can all continue. And I hope with 68 of them egging each other on, that they're actually kind of voiced to continue this and participate with us in the future. This is the 3rd annual version of this exhibition, but we don't see ourselves stopping anytime soon.
Good.
So I think that does it just about for all the questions I have for you. I know this is a little bit weirder of a format because I can't answer directly some of the questions everyone's asking me. It's not always true that I get to be on the other side of the camera sometimes. But I'm glad everyone for kind of tuning in and hearing. This is a shorter session by us today, because we actually have some people wanting to come in. But I apologize in advance for not being able to kind of let them in as we have a full interview going. But luckily we were able to hear some of Laura's words and her commentary about the pieces in the exhibition as a whole. And,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and you should have somebody be here every day in the front. That'll bring more people in.
Yeah, 100%. It looks amazing when you have like an interview going on. It really makes it a spectacle. But again, I'm so glad for everyone tuning in. This is Gabe and Laura Marsh, and of course this exhibition will still be up, 64 women pulling out the threads of social discourse, until November 13th.
Come by.
Come by, please, yes. I know we were scheduled for it to end today, but no. There's too many people who want to come see the exhibition, so we decided to extend it. You're always free to come in from Tuesday to Saturday, 12 to 5. We'll always be here, or you can feel free to call us at any time. So you can stop by. And again, thank you everyone for joining us for this little interview. Let me walk behind the camera and I'm canceling it now.